Today is Sunday, October 28th, 2012. I just showed a clip of Sunday, September 30th, how it looked. So it's going to start getting brown soon, end of the year. But I wanted to talk about some of the things that worked for me in my first time. I used some organic fertilizer, and I can show you how I did that. And I learned a few tricks that I thought I'd share with you. I guess we'll start right here. This is the strawberry bed. It's the only raised bed that I have. I'm definitely going to use more next year, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Strawberries like fertile soil, and they like it to be loose. So you want to use your best soil that you have for strawberries. These are the TriStar variety, so they don't really depend on a lot of sun to produce fruit, so they'll keep producing fruit past June, so that's kind of cool. And then up here I grew some corn, and next to that you might be able to see the vine in there. That was a yellow crookneck squash, and came crawling over to the strawberry bed, and then even past that, and then almost up to the house. And as you can see, there's one right there left. Probably not really good to eat right now. Wouldn't taste very good at this point. All along the back fence, along this chain link fence, is tomatoes, our tomatoes, and they're really bushy. I should have pruned them. I didn't really know because it's my first time, but I can show you real quick how you would have wanted to prune them. You would look for a branch that's not a main one. You see how they have these shoots coming off? Those are pretty much useless. They just take up water, so you just pinch it and then pull it pretty much like that. Oops, that's not what you want to do. You just pinch it and then pull it. And that's how you prune them. So this should be a lot less bushy than this. I'll do that next year. These are vines for watermelon, and I had them growing along the porch here because I had it so where there was one just sitting right up here. It's pretty cool. Unfortunately, I didn't strap it down, and it ended up falling, and then it was no good because it wasn't ripe yet. So that kind of sucked. There's a watermelon over here, which is, I don't know if it's going to be any good because, like I said, it's October 28th. It's been pretty cold out. But I guess when they're ripe, these things start to turn brown right here where this vine connects to it. Here I had some herbs in pots up here. I brought those in the house. In the middle I had a whole bunch of zucchini. This is tomato. It's crowding it out. Like I said, I should have pruned that big time. But this is all zucchini right in here. It's all pretty much dead. And then in the middle over here I had cucumbers, and those are all dead at this point. But they're climbers, so you definitely want to have something for them to climb up on. And these are just posts from some fencing. That's my cat. I did this kind of late, built this thing late. The beans were already in the ground and growing and really clustered. So next year I'm going to have something there. They're pretty tasty beans. We canned these a few times. You just get some vegetable broth and then cut up the beans, boil it in that for a few minutes, and we had a pressure canner. But you should always, when you're canning, always check the appropriate times for cooking and everything, because you don't want to eat bad food. You have to do it right. Eggplant. Made some eggplant parmesan for the first time this year. It was pretty good. Swiss chard, which is like a lettuce. I was under the impression that Swiss chard liked shade, so I built this whole thing, and it's warped from the rain, but I had the ability to open and close that for sun. It was kind of a dumb idea, and I'm not going to do it next year. So I guess I'll talk about what I did in the spring to prepare the whole garden. First it was all grass here. There was a swing set in the middle, and I did it the hard way. The easy way to do it is to start in the fall and dig up a couple chunks or a small chunk at a time, and you turn it over, and then a week later or a few days later you come back and you just turn it over again, and then that way it kills the grass. If you just turn it over once, it'll probably survive, because grass is a survivor. Unlike vegetable plants, we've been growing them for millennia, and the way we've been growing them has made their roots smaller and their tops heavier, so they're pretty fragile. You gotta take good care of your plants. If you can't find a spot that gets a lot of sun, there are tricks you can use. Like, for example, that white building there helps with my garden because it reflects light. You can also put aluminum foil at the base of the plant. As you can see, I didn't use raised beds, unfortunately. I found out the hard way that when you water them and you don't have raised beds, the water just kind of runs right off. So I had to build little humps to make sure this is higher than the area where the plants are, so the water wouldn't run out. Next year I'm gonna definitely have raised beds. I guess that's it for the tour of the garden. When it comes to the end of the season, like I'm at here now, I heard it's a good idea to make sure you clean everything up, rip everything out, because if you had any plants that had diseases and then you just leave the plants there, then those diseases will still survive throughout the fall and the winter, and they'll come back in the spring. So you do want to rip everything out. If you're considering having a garden, you should start as soon as you can. Plan ahead. You want to plant some things inside and then transplant them, like your tomatoes. I think the ideal time is to plant them inside about 6 weeks before you're going to go plant them outside. And usually you want to start planting around Mother's Day if you live in my area, Toledo, Ohio. So you want to start them inside about mid-April. If you're thinking about starting your own garden and you're not sure, I would definitely recommend it. There's a lot of benefits to it. You're out there working with nature, so it's kind of relaxing, for one. And you're eating better food, especially if you have an organic garden. And you're saving money, so it's a win-win situation, or win-win-win. So I definitely recommend it, and it's not as hard as it looks. There are things you need to know, of course, so there are reading materials that I would recommend. These are the 2 books that I read in the spring before I started. Vertical Gardening by Darek Fell, even though I didn't do a lot of vertical gardening, just the pole beans and the cucumbers. I might do more next year. But he also has some details on how to take care of specific varieties of plants, which is really cool. And it goes into all the details, like if they can grow vertically or not, are there pests and diseases that they're susceptible to, things like that. The second book that I recommend is Gardening When It Counts by Steve Solomon. I would say if you're going to choose between one of the two, I would say to get the Gardening When It Counts book. In this book, this guy talks about how to create your own organic fertilizer, which I'll show you in a minute. And he goes into in-depth detail about getting the right kind of garden that you want based on like what kind of fertilizer you want to use. and the right shovels to use and stuff like that. So like I said, it's really easy, or it's a lot easier than people would think. Plants are a living thing, just kind of like a pet. You have to know how to take care of a pet, but it's not that hard. And the same goes for plants. So I'd recommend picking up some seeds, some trays, put the seeds in, get some dirt in there, or whatever medium you want to use. You don't have to use dirt. I'd recommend it because that's what they're going to be growing in eventually. So you might as well get them used to it. And that's what this author talks about in this book. And you want to keep the seeds warm as they're growing. That's the big thing that they need. A little bit of water, but not as much as you might think. But definitely keep them warm. That's how they start germinating. If you're going to have potted plants and they're inside, you want to have something underneath them because they do leak out the bottom. So you can pick up one of these trays. I got this one at Meijer for I think 50 cents or something like that. So keep that in mind. And now I'll talk about the fertilizers. I used two different methods. One was a foliar spray, and that consists of fish fertilizer. This can be found at a gardening center, and I mix that with seaweed plant food. And then you dilute it with water in this sprayer here. What you do is you just pump it up and then squeeze the trigger and it sprays. And you want to do that about every couple of weeks, about 2 weeks. That's what I was trying to average. You just go around spraying the leaves. You just want to make sure the plants get the micronutrients that they need. That's the whole reason for this. They've got micronutrients that the other fertilizer does not. And I'll talk about the other fertilizer now. This is the macronutrients, like the nitrogen, the potassium. According to Steve Solomon, he's got this formula for his complete organic fertilizer. Page 21 of his book. There are many different ways that it can vary. So you can see it says, or use this, or use that, blend with this, and that, plus a little bit of that for best results. And I do need to make some more of this stuff, so I'll just go ahead and show you how I do that. You need 4 scoops of the seed meal. And for the second ingredient, it says to use a 1/4 part of agriculture lime. And then the third ingredient is gypsum, which I didn't have. And he says if you don't have that, just make it a 1/2 part agriculture lime instead of a 1/4 part. I've got that in there. Now I have to add a 1/2 part of the dolomite lime. Then you'll see this stuff is powdery, and it's not harmful at all. It doesn't burn your skin, doesn't burn the plants. The last thing is bone meal. It has a lot of phosphate in it, so I need to add a 1/2 part of that. And that's it, guys. Just mix that up, and then what you do is you pour this into the soil, then you mix it up when you're preparing the garden before you put any seeds in it at the beginning of the year. A few weeks later, you side dress around the plants. So there's just a few essentials that I would make sure you've got. That's a shovel, trowel, a hose, and then a nice watering wand is helpful if you got a really big garden. A sunny spot, water them frequently. Don't overdo it, but a lot of people underdo it, so keep that in mind. Soil is loose and has fertilizer in it. I can leave a list of the instructions on how to make the fertilizer at the bottom of the page in the comment section. And I believe that's it. So happy gardening and good luck, guys.